I really want to talk about the mindset or heart behind the idea of free things and one small change because the attitudes at the back of them, I think, can make or break your postpartum. Hey, lady. Welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids, ages 9 and under, with 1 miscarried baby. Here we see postpartum, all the way from birth to the first year of life, as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 83. Hi, lady. I hope you're well. Let's get started with free things and one small change as usual. Free things for the week. And you know, if you've been around a minute, that free things is mental shorthand as a reminder to myself and to you that there's always something we can be grateful for. Always something. And also that a beautiful, meaningful, rich life is available to all of us, no matter how big the size of our family or the size of our budget. Free things this week in no particular order. There's kind of all across the board. And one of them I'm actually, can you do this? I am taking somebody else's free thing because it's not relevant to me, but I want to mention it in case it becomes a free thing for you sometime soon. My best friend learned last week, and I actually, like I said, I knew this previously, so it's not brand new to me, but she learned last week that when you have a headlight out, for instance, you go to the store, to AutoZone or O'Reilly or whatever the auto parts store is near you, you buy the part that you need, and then they'll install it for you for free. And they'll do the same thing with windshield wipers. Now, the only caveat or asterisk to that is that some vehicles, and I think it's some newer vehicles, which is not relevant to my husband or I, because we always buy much older vehicles, but I believe some newer vehicles, maybe you'd have to take it to an auto repair shop and not just an auto parts store, in which case you would have to pay for it. But always worth asking at an auto parts store first if it's the type of vehicle, a type of vehicle, that can just have you buy the part and then they put it in for you, as opposed to having to pay to have it done and to make an appointment and all of that. All right, that's one thing. Another thing is that both Friday and Sunday, I had multiple people that helped me by holding the baby so that I could eat food. On Friday, we went with friends to a fish fry, and they had a foster baby who was with them, and it was really kind of them. The line that we waited in to eat was, I think, an hour or 55 minutes, one or the other. The kids did great. Like, they held up really well, and for the last probably 5 or 10 minutes of it, all of my little kids went with my friend and sat down at the tables waiting for us to get through line, me and the 2 big kids. My husband was going to have come with us and then had a cold and just didn't sound like he should be out and about in public. I told him, yeah, just go ahead and stay home, get some rest here. But still, me going out in public with 5 kids, not unusual. We do that a fair amount, but standing in line for an hour is it's a big ask. It's a big ask for kids. And at the end of waiting in line, and really, like I said, the last 10 minutes, pretty much the same time that the 2 little boys went to go sit with my friend, another friend who her son goes to the school that was hosting this fish fry. She saw us there and she came up and she held my daughter the whole time, that whole last 10 minutes of being in line. And then while I was eating. And you know, lady, as you know as well as I, can we eat with just one hand? Sure. Yes, we can. Can we eat while we're bouncing and shushing the baby? Yep, we can do that. We have done that before. And can we also do that while trying to help other small children cut food, put food in mouths, remind them to wipe their faces with napkins and not their sleeves, remind them to all of these things? Yeah, we can do those things. But is it really a gift when we don't have to? When somebody else steps in and says, hey, let me give you a hand. Yeah, it is. It's a real blessing. That happened Friday at the fish fry, and it was even greater, I think, because it was unexpected. You know, sometimes you and I, we figure things out and we plan in advance, and right, we've got it figured out and organized. And when it works according to that plan, that's awesome. But sometimes there is no plan. And even I think in those moments, we may be even more grateful that, yeah, we couldn't anticipate it all in advance. And yet someone else helped us. Friday, there was a meal for the installation of our pastor. We have had an unusual circumstance in our diocese because if you're Catholic, you probably know this. I think this is pretty much the way it is across the United States. But, on July 1st, usually if you're going to get a new pastor, that's when your new pastor would come. But our diocese lost two priests about a week apart from each other back in November. And one of them was at a parish about 20 minutes from here, a large parish, the only parish in that town. And excuse me, our pastor moved on February 1st. Like the priest who had been at the four, they're called the quad parishes, but the four little parishes, and we're at one of them. He left on February 1st, and we got this brand new pastor on February 2nd, and he was installed formally as our pastor on Sunday, this previous Sunday. The bishop came. It was very nice. There were several other priests that came and celebrated with him. And then afterwards, there was a lunch. And once again, as I was standing in line to get food, somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, can I hold the baby?" Now, was this lady a complete stranger to me? No, she was not. She goes to another one of the parishes. I've seen her plenty of times before, and it was a real gift. But she held her for probably half of the celebration. And then the other half, another lady who we also knew well, she is the volunteer 4-H leader for my big kids. She came and took her from the other lady. I didn't even see the handoff. That's how seamless it was. I didn't even see the handoff. But those things were a real gift. It was truly kind of those women, those 3 women over the course of 2 days to help me out, because is it just such a gift to be able to eat with both of your hands? Yeah. Yeah, it sure is. Another free thing, I got a free month of phone. Well, I guess I got paid well for my time is really more accurate answer. But I have had 3 months in a row where we do prepaid with Verizon. And they have shut my phone off because they have said your auto pay didn't work. The payment is not going through. And your phone service is going to be shut off tomorrow until you make an additional payment. And every day, or each time I've called Verizon and I've said, "What's going on, you guys?" Because of course it happens over a weekend. And so that happens Saturday night. Sunday morning it gets shut off. And then Monday I call them. I say, "I made a payment. I restored the phone service. But like, why is this happening? And how are we going to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again?" This is the 3rd month in a row. After each previous time I'd been reassured, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. And it's not going to happen again." But then it did. And after the conversation on Monday, which took 42 minutes, that's why I'm kind of thinking maybe it's not quite fair to say that it's free, but I would say it was appropriately compensated. At the end of the call, supposedly, hopefully, presumably, arguably, there won't be a problem going forward. And I got 1 month's phone paid for. And so would I have preferred they just not shut off the phone and have not had the problem in the first place? Yes. But if we can't have that, I do appreciate them at least giving some compensation. And that is something, just an FYI, if this comes up for you, that is something that I specifically asked for. I specifically said, I would like to know what compensation is available because of the hassle of calling 3 months in a row now and the problem is not being fixed. And then the last free thing that I just wanted to bring up, because I think this will probably be relevant for you too from time to time, and I just want us to, like I said, I just want us to be aware of it, to pay attention to it, is that I was asked yesterday, I received a text message from a former pastor, and he said, former pastor of ours, he's still a priest, but former pastor of ours, and he said, "I need a recommendation of a book for a woman who's coming into the Catholic faith and has a small child, 2-year-old. To be asked our opinion about things, it just feels really good, doesn't it? To be asked what we think, to be asked to offer input. It is a good thing. It's free. And it's free for us to give, but it's a good thing. And then one small change, and you already know, lady, that one small change is something that we talk about because we want to keep track of small changes for ourselves, for our babies, for both during postpartum. My one small change this week is that my husband and I went on a run for the first time in our 11 married years today. And part of why I had refused to go on a run previously, it's twofold. The first is that I historically have not run. If I was going to run, I was running because I was playing a sport, some type of team group activity. I was running as part of that, but I do not, as a rule, historically run, just go running. But in addition to that, I knew that even him at his least in shape, most out of shape, which, I mean, he plays basketball for an hour twice a week, so he's not that out of shape, but he would say that he is right now. Even at his most out of shape, he is still going to be much faster than I. And I just didn't want to be apologizing or also half dead trying to keep up with him or thinking, "Oh, he's going so slowly for me. Wah." I wasn't up for it. But today I thought, you know what? Let's go. Let's just go. Our grandma tribe, Miss Louise, grandma tribe member Miss Louise was here for her hour and a half. She comes once a week. And she was here. And during that time, it worked out that he had just finished a meeting, was able to start his lunch break a little bit early, and we went. Was it anything magical, lady? No. He kept my pace, which was very kind of him. And I compared at the end. I just said, oh, how long did it take you it took us 30 minutes to go 2.2 miles. So we walked and ran and walked and ran. And I said, what would it have normally taken you? He said, oh, about 24 minutes to do 2 miles and 2.2 miles. I was like, that's 6 minutes difference. But you just gotta, that's where I am. I just have to take where I am. And I hope sometimes you're able to take where you're at. And that's the thought behind today, lady. Actually, here are the two things that I think can make or break your postpartum. And they are the direct impetus behind free things and one small change. The two things I think can make or break your postpartum are actually thoughts or ideas or beliefs or attitudes. And the first one is this. During postpartum, everything is hard. You could also say it as during postpartum, everything is bad. You could even say during postpartum, everything is impossible. And there's a fair amount that is hard during postpartum, right? You and I know that. We have plenty of evidence on a daily basis, whether we had a baby a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, or almost a year ago. We have evidence daily of the things that are hard. We are already aware of those things. And the more that we spend time on social media, we become increasingly aware of those things. Our reticular activating systems are wired to pay attention to things and then notice more similar things. That's why when you buy a new vehicle, you see the same vehicle on the road, even though you had never seen one of those before in your life. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much. We are looking for patterns. Our brains are looking for similar things. And then also we're wired to notice danger. And so if we see something that's hard, then we can start to pay attention to other things that are hard. And also during postpartum, we are primed to pay particular attention to things that could be dangerous to us, our new children, our other children, right? We're on alert. All of that to say, we are aware, you and I, that things can be hard. But if we adopt that attitude as reality, that everything is hard or impossible or bad, that really sets the tone, doesn't it, for how we perceive the rest of our experience. And I don't think it's necessary to do that. Obviously, I think that. Obviously, because this podcast exists. And because I've done postpartum 5 times now. And hopefully we get smarter over time, right? Hopefully we get smarter over time. But I don't think our only option, even if it might be the default, honestly, I don't think our only option, I don't think our best or healthiest option is to believe or to act as if we believe that everything is bad, hard, or impossible. But a direct way that we can counteract that is this idea of looking for the free things. And you could say free things. You could say things under $10. You could say things I didn't ask for. You could say things I didn't need. Things I didn't know I wanted, things I didn't know would be helpful, whatever terminology you like, lady, that's on you. You can decide that. But whatever it is, whatever words sound best to your ears, it's really important to be looking for the things that are good, to be looking for the things that we can be grateful for. Even just today, right? This morning, doing homeschooling with the big kids. There was a lot of whining. My daughter, who struggles a lot with attention and impulsivity and focusing on nothing at all, but not on her school, or nothing at all, but not on her chores, etc. It was a tough go. It just was. It was a tough go. And then my 2 little guys were fighting each other in the other room, which is not exactly unusual or atypical for small children, but when there's what feels like an emotional fire in front of you and then also just screaming in the room next to you, you know what I mean? It adds up. And also the baby's teething. And so just everything right now for her is kind of, there's the word everything. Many things, there's the correction. Many things for her lead to tears right now. Well, she's waiting for her next couple of teeth to pop through. But there was still plenty to be grateful for, right? There's still plenty to be grateful for. So that's the first thing. I would love to invite you to be aware of the tendency to consume media, other people's thoughts, the written word, what have you, that perpetuate this idea that is already easy for us to believe during postpartum, which is that everything is bad or hard or impossible. I'd love to invite you to look for evidence of something else, because I truly think it will make a difference for your postpartum. And then the second idea is that whatever is bad, feels hard, or impossible today is always going to be that way. Whatever is bad, hard, or impossible today is always going to be that way. And it won't change. And your capacity to handle it won't change either. In fact, it'll get harder because over time you'll get more worn out. So if you started, so to speak, at, I'm just making up numbers here, but if you started at level 500, then you're going to get to 450 and 400 and 350 and 300 until you're at 0. Blah. Isn't that kind of how video games work? I don't know. I have a little picture in my head of Mario, but I also don't ever play Mario. But like, you know what I mean? Where he's on jumping like the steps, but they go down. Anyhow, that's the image that's in my head. But I distinctly recall when my son, who's almost 10 now, was a baby. And I'm saying a baby because I can't remember how old he was. A couple of months maybe. And having some trouble with sleeping. I remember thinking, I can't do this for the next 18 years. Well, praise God that nobody is the same age for 18 years, right? Now, like I said, he's almost 10. Does he have other issues? Yeah, for sure. But trying to get him to sleep through the night is not one of them. But I think it's really important also, like I said, this is the second attitude that I think can make or break your postpartum. Because you and I both know there are things that we're not good at today. And honestly, that's why I think about this often actually. That's why I don't typically say things like, you are such a good mom. You're doing the best that you can. You're the best mom. Because lady, I am not in your house. I am not in your shoes. I don't actually know how you're doing. I don't actually know, which is why I'm not going to tell you something I don't know. Because I think there's a fair amount of affirmation that's floating around out there in the world. And we have a hard time grasping onto it because it's offered by people who don't actually know us in our situation. Maybe this is a tangent, I'm not sure. But just briefly, like, I don't know what is and isn't easy for you today. And it might be something specialized, so to speak. It might be that your child is having a really rough go for a medical reason. It might be that you are in the throes of a very serious postpartum depression. And maybe what you've got to offer today is getting out of bed. I don't know. And maybe it's something far less dramatic. And maybe it's something that's not related to the new baby per se, but your husband's job or something with your mother. I'm not sure. Excuse me. I don't know what your hard thing is, but I also don't know what your level of capacity or skill is to deal with those things right now, which is why I try not to say blanket things if I don't know them to be true. But whatever is hard right now, for you as well as for me, there are some things that we aren't doing real well today. There was some patience that I was not exhibiting this morning that is definitely a work in progress for me, depending on the child particularly. There are some things that are really hard today, but one small change is a reminder that not everything will always be hard, that our capacity to handle the things that are difficult in our lives can grow. And you might be thinking, Anne-Marie, that is so obvious. It's so obvious. Well, sort of it is. Yes. And yet at the same time, how easy isn't it to forget? And that's why I'm bringing it up right now. That's why I'm bringing it up right now. One small change. Every week, I hope you're paying attention. Every day, if you can. I hope you're paying attention to this idea of what are the small things that are changing and improving and growing, or even just hard things that are going away. Because as postpartum goes on, something that was difficult is no longer difficult. Something that was a problem just stops being a problem. Not even like you necessarily get better at dealing with it. It just, at some point, it just goes away. Sometimes time heals things. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes our ability to handle them, to know what to do with them, changes. And that's also a testament, I think, to the value of learning to accept discomfort in our lives. That's going to be a separate episode, actually, on the most important part of OCD therapy that I think actually every single person in their life, but in a particular way, postpartum moms really, I think, should take advantage of. I think that there's a technique I'll get to separately for that, but one small change. I hope you're paying attention. I hope you're paying attention. I invite you to pay attention. I urge you, encourage you, implore you, advocate for you to be paying attention to the things that are no longer as hard, or the things that aren't hard at all, or the things that just aren't anymore. I hope that's helpful to you, lady. I'll talk to you next time.